This is on a career level now for the Dallas Cowboys. So CeeDee Lamb with 111 yards jumps up into sixth place all time in that category with 7,315 yards. Welcome to Just the Stats NFL Top 10s for Wednesday. We are in the middle of the week. My name's Ernie, and we're going to finish up looking at 4 more games from Sunday and Monday. And then we'll look at the standings and the playoff scenarios a little bit. So that's what we have to cover today. Hope you enjoy listening to them. If you missed the games that I covered previously, just go to Monday or Tuesday's podcast and you can catch the other. Man, there were 12 games. So, well, actually 11 because one was done on Friday. That was a Thursday night game. But all the games from Sunday, other than the 4 we're going to talk about today, the Sunday and Monday game, you can find on my Monday and Tuesday podcast. So just go to Just the Stats NFL on YouTube, and you can watch the video or listen to it there. Or, of course, you can listen to it on Apple, Spotify, or whatever app you use for podcasting. So with that, we are going to jump right into this and get through the rest of these games. These games were a little closer than some of them that we talked about the other day. So let's start with Tennessee was visiting San Francisco, and they lost 37-24. San Francisco wins this game 37-24. Now, there was some interesting things that happened in this game. This was a game where Tennessee tried to hang in there. Halftime, they're only down 17-10, but third quarter, San Francisco put up 14 unanswered points, and Tennessee just could not keep pace, despite the fact that they scored 14 in the fourth quarter, but they were already down, and it was mostly just trying to make some type of a comeback. George Kittle had a big game, had a lot of good catches, a touchdown catch, and we'll talk about this guy. But Jeffrey Simmons, defensive player, and we'll talk about him as far as tackles for loss go. But he actually caught a touchdown pass. Second time in his career that he caught a touchdown pass. That was for Tennessee. So that was probably exciting for him. Unfortunately, it was in a losing effort. Tony Pollard for the Tennessee Titans had another 100-plus yard game, 2 in a row. And Tennessee really defensively just couldn't stop San Francisco. I mean, the 49ers scored on 7 of their first 8 possessions. So there was just nothing Tennessee could really do to stop them. Now, looking at the numbers in this game, San Francisco racked up 430 yards of offense to 306 for Tennessee. Both teams had about the same amount of rushing yards net, 136 to 138. San Francisco having 2 more yards than Tennessee. And then one of the big differences was in third down conversions. Tennessee, 3 out of 9 for 33%. They did go for it on fourth down twice and made it both times. San Francisco on third down, 9 out of 15 for 60%. That's really high. And then had 1 fourth down conversion as well. But when you're converting third downs at a 60% rate, that's really good. The other thing that San Francisco did here, they just dominated time of possession. 37 minutes for San Francisco, 23 for Tennessee. Another reason why Tennessee just could not get back into this game. Now, this is actually one of the better games for Cameron Ward. And I've put off saying he's a bad quarterback or a good quarterback. He just needs more help. And next year, hopefully, they'll have definitely a higher draft pick, and maybe they'll pick up an offensive lineman or another receiver or something. But Cameron Ward went 18 completions on 29 attempts for 170 yards, just under 6 yards an attempt, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. It was not sacked. Again, he was leading the NFL in sacks by quite a ways, and they've changed up the way they're doing their offense or something, but getting rid of the ball a little quicker, but not sacked at all. Quarterback rating of 101.2. That's definitely one of his better quarterback ratings. Now, Brock Purdy had an excellent game. 23 completions on 30 attempts, 295 yards, 9.8 yards an attempt, so almost 10 yards there. 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, was sacked twice, but just for 3 yards. Had a quarterback rating of 140.3, so really good game for him. Now, like I said, Tony Pollard for the Tennessee Titans had 14 carries, 104 yards, 7.4 yards per carry. That's really good. And 1 touchdown. T.J. Spears only carried the ball 3 times. You know, there was talk of him being a little more involved, but only 3 rushing attempts for him, and he had 2 catches as well. So he did outcatch Tony Pollard, but by 1 catch. And Tony Pollard actually had 1 catch for 8 yards, so did even better in that category. So Pollard had 112 yards of offense in this game. Now, Christian McCaffrey, just kind of his typical efficient type or workman-like style of running. 22 carries, 73 yards, so only 3.32 yards a carry. His longest run was only 9 yards. He did have a touchdown. An interesting stat I heard in the game, which I didn't realize, but Christian McCaffrey has broken more tackles than any player this year in NFL. And just watching the game, you see it. I mean, he really is getting hit quite early and still making some headway, you know, even if he's pushing forward just for 3 or 4 yards. But I didn't realize that was a stat that McCaffrey had. Now, that kind of tells you that San Francisco might want to work on their offensive line a little bit. Part of that, you know, though, early for a lot of the season and even today, McCaffrey, this whole offense runs around McCaffrey. So every team is focusing on him, which might explain a little bit of why it's so hard for him to get some bigger runs off. And this was really for him a quiet game because in the receiving department, he only had 1 catch for 14 yards. So he had a total of 87 yards of offense in this game. Now, Brock Purdy had 7 rushes for 44 yards, and Brian Robinson came in with 9 attempts, only 21 yards, though, just over 2 yards for him. So they rushed the ball 38 times. Wow, that's a lot. Only 138 yards, though, for 3.6 yards per attempt. So, you know, like I said, kind of workmanlike, not impressive, but it did the job, and it was ball possession. Time of possession, you know, they just held that ball. Now, Tennessee receiving department, I'm looking at these names. Boy, do they need some help on offense. I mean, it's wide receivers. I mean, when you have Jeffrey Simmons catching a touchdown pass, you know, a defensive player, that's not good. But you got Dickey with 4 catches for 17, Gunnar Helm, 4 catches for 49, Okonkwo, 4 catches, 33. I mean, you're talking about no player here with probably may not make the team next year. I mean, one of them may, but Dickey should. But these are not your number 1 or number 2 wide receivers or tight ends. I mean, they just need a lot of help on offense. Now, for San Francisco, George Kittle had a good game, as did Ricky Pearsall. George Kittle, 8 catches, 88 yards, and a touchdown for him. Ricky Pearsall, 6 catches, 96 yards. And then Juwan Jennings had only 3 catches, but 2 of them were for touchdowns. So good game for him as well. All right, let's look at some of the numbers in this game. Now, looking at some of the top 10's in this game. As I was mentioning, Jeffrey Simmons, not only did he catch a touchdown pass, he had 2 tackles for loss on defense. which was good enough to jump him into third place. He passed Albert Haynesworth and Keith Bullock, both players in the early 2000s for the Tennessee Titans. So Jeffrey Simmons now with 63 tackles for loss is third all-time in that category for the Tennessee Titans. So next up for him is Harold Landry, who had 70. Now, Jeffrey Simmons has only been on the team since 2019. He's already got 63 tackles for loss. So he is definitely a mainstay for them on defense, so they can build around him. Their defense actually isn't terrible, even though they did give up that many points, but it's one of those things when you're on the field all the time, your defense just breaks down sooner or later. All right. That was really all you had for Tennessee. Now for San Francisco 49ers, Brock Purdy was in 10th place all-time in San Francisco history in passing yards. He had 295 in this game, which was good enough to help him move ahead of Frankie Albert, who played in the 40s and 50s. So Brock Purdy now has 10,960 passing yards to move into 9th place all-time for the San Francisco 49ers. Next up for him is Colin Kaepernick. And I don't think he'll catch him. Needs about 1,100 yards in 3 games. He'd have to have some pretty big games to do that. So probably next year he'll be able to move up a few spots. And then one more, Kittle. George Kittle for San Francisco in the all-touchdown category. Was in 10th. He had 1 touchdown reception in this game, so now he's tied with Hugh McElhenney, who played in the 50s. He had 51, and now George Kittle has 51 touchdowns in his career with San Francisco 49ers. Now, next up for him is Vernon Davis, who has 55. So we'll see if he can get to that before the end of the season. All right. That is a look at the Tennessee Titans and the San Francisco 49ers, with the 49ers winning 37-24 over the Titans. Next up, Seattle Seahawks versus the Indianapolis Colts. What a game this was. Crazy game because of the appearance of Rivers coming out of retirement. Phillip Rivers hadn't played for 5 years and came into this game, and Indianapolis almost won it. They were underdogs by about 13 points in this game, and it came down to the last minute in the game, and Seattle was able to pull it out. What a crazy game. Seattle did not score a touchdown. They had 6 field goals by Jason Myers, including a 56-yarder with 29 seconds left in the game to pull in the lead. And then, unfortunately, Indianapolis could not get down the field far enough to try another field goal for themselves. Phillip Rivers threw an interception at the end of the game there to seal the deal for Seattle. But like I said, Jason Myers, 6 field goals in this game, including a franchise record 56-yarder at the end of the game. He didn't miss a field goal. I mean, even the kicker, though, for Indianapolis was excellent as well. Kicked a 60-yarder with a minute to go, or a couple, to pull Indianapolis into the lead at the time, 13 to, what was that? 16 to 15. Indianapolis pulled into the lead with 16 to 15, but then just couldn't stop. Just 2 passes down the field, and Seattle was in field goal range again, and they kicked that last field goal. But quite a game, and I find it interesting that Indianapolis came out. Their defense was tough. Like I said, Seattle could not score a touchdown in this game, ended up just kicking field goals the whole day. Indianapolis Colts had a pretty decent defense. Now, in this game, one of the things with Phillip Rivers, and they talked about it throughout the podcast, or not the podcast, but the game, was just his inability to get the ball too far down the field. That was a problem. You could tell his arm strength is not really there. Now, whether it'll be better next Sunday or not, I don't know. He is starting again. That was announced by the coach that he will be the starting quarterback again for Indianapolis. Now, in this game, Seattle had 314 yards of offense. Indianapolis only had 215 yards of offense. And it was kind of that type of a game. They were just trying to slug it out and hang in there, and they almost did it. Just not quite. Phillip Rivers, 18 completions, 27 attempts. Only 120 yards, though. Only 4.4 yards an attempt, 1 touchdown, and then that interception at the very end of the game that he had. Only interception, only sacked once, had a quarterback rating of 73.1. Honestly, I didn't know what to expect. And he I guess, you want to say 45 years old, not playing for 5 years, did a pretty decent job against a Seattle team that is good. Seattle is they're 11-3. I mean, you're talking about a really good team. And Indianapolis held their own in this game. Now, Sam Darnold, 22 for 36, 271 yards, 7.5 yards per attempt, no touchdowns, no interceptions, only sacked once. Quarterback rating of 84.4. He was only sacked once, but he really was rushed a little bit in this game. Now, Jonathan Taylor ran the ball 25 times, and obviously that was the goal, was to try to maintain possession of this in this game and limit Seattle. Indianapolis Colts took the ball on the kickoff. In fact, they wanted that ball as often as they could. But Jonathan Taylor, 25 attempts, 87 yards, just under 3.5 yards a carry. They ran the ball a total of 30 times for 97 yards, so that was their attempt. Now, Seattle, on the other hand, Indianapolis did a number on them. As a team, 22 carries, 50 yards, so 2.27 yards per carry. I mean, Zach Charbonnet, 8 carries, 31 yards. That's less than 4 yards a carry. Kenneth Walker, 9 carries, 17 yards. That's less than 2 yards a carry. So they really held them in check. Now, in the game overall, it was pretty close as far as time of possession, 31 minutes for Indianapolis, 29 for Seattle. So that was pretty close there. Now, looking at the receivers for Indianapolis, now this is where you flip-flop the numbers here. Amir Abdullah, coming out of the backfield, had 5 catches for 32 yards. And at some point in the game, late in the game, he threw a pass to Abdullah. I'm talking about Phillip Rivers, that he shouldn't have thrown. I mean, he caught the ball, but by this time, late in the game, when they're trying to get down the field, the Seattle Seahawks no, he's going to throw it short, and they're just setting on these players, waiting for them to catch a short pass. Josh Downs, 3 catches, 13 yards. I mean, the longest pass that Phillip Rivers threw was for 17 yards to Tyler Warren. Alec Pierce caught 1 catch for 16 yards. That's the farthest he got the ball down the field. Now for Seattle, this Jackson Smith-Njigba had a pretty good game. No touchdowns, but 7 catches, 113 yards. So he had a really good game. And Cooper Kupp, 5 for 46, and Rashid Shaheed, 5 for 74. And again, nobody had a touchdown, though, in this game. All right, now looking at some of the stats in this game, Jonathan Taylor needed 75 yards in this game to move up in the single season category. And he got that. He got 87. So Jonathan Taylor went into this game in 8th spot this season in most rushing yards for the Indianapolis Colts with 87 more. He moves into 7th all-time in Indianapolis Colts history in rushing yards in a single season. He's now got 1,443. He is still on a pace, even though he had 87, of more than 100 yards per game. With 3 games to go, he still has a chance to do that. Would not break the record. In 2021, Jonathan Taylor had over 1,800 yards, so that's even better than 100 yards, obviously, but right now Jonathan Taylor's just scraping over 100. So he's going to have to, he's about 102 or so. But still, really a good season for him. It's kind of tapered off a little bit. And obviously now with these quarterbacks situation, defenses are going to key on Jonathan Taylor for sure. Now, also in this game for Seattle Seahawks, Jackson Smith-Njigba in the receiving department on the season level came into the game in 6th place with 89 receptions. So he had 7 more in this game. He's now got 96, which was good enough to jump over 3 players. He's now in 3rd place all-time in receptions for the Seattle Seahawks with 96. And barring injury, he'll break his own record, which he set in last year with 100 receptions. He tied Tyler Lockett. They both have 100 receptions. Tyler Lockett did it in 2020. Not that long ago, really. But Jackson Smith-Njigba now has 96, so only needs 5 to pass both of them. And that's a routine day for him to get 5 receptions. So I expect to see him set the record this Thursday. He's been very impressive this year. He's also averaging over 100 yards a game in receiving, though. All right, one more here. Jared Reed was in 10th place, tied for 9th with Frank Clark, actually, in tackles for loss with 35. He had 1. He is now in 9th place all by himself in tackles for loss with 36. That's for the Seattle Seahawks on a career level, 9th all-time in that category. All right, let's move on to our next game. Dallas Cowboys versus the Minnesota Vikings. Dallas really needed this game. Minnesota's out of it. Dallas needed a win. They did not get it, but they're not completely knocked out of the playoffs, though their chances are very slim. Minnesota beat Dallas in Dallas 34-26. Kind of a surprise. J.J. McCarthy had his best game ever, which might have been the reason why. Had, 250 yards passing, which was a career high for him. 2 touchdowns, and he ran 1 in. So really a big game for him. And he had looked terrible, earlier. So I don't know. Coach has been working with him really well, getting him to, I guess, be a little bit more in the game. But good game for him. I mean, he had some explosive plays in this game. He had passes of 58 yards, 29, 23, 18. So he was getting the ball down the field. And again, for Dallas, this is their bugaboo. Their defense had improved a little bit, but again, giving up 30-plus points, which is the 7th time they've done it this year, which is tied for the most times in the league, 7 games where you've given up at least 30 points. Like I said, Dallas, they're now 6-7-1. Even if they win out with 3 more games, they'd be 9-7-1. So it's a possibility that they could make the playoffs, but somebody like Green Bay would have to lose the rest of their games for them to have a chance. That's what's going to happen is one of these teams is a wild card or something is going to have to lose every game they play. So the odds are pretty slim. Now in this game, this is a close game all the way through. Minnesota came out strong in the 4th quarter and outscored them and ended up winning this game by 8. Dallas, offensively, they just could not get the ball in the end zone enough. They had 423 yards of offense versus 327 for Minnesota, so they had a lot of yardage. Just had a hard time actually getting it into the end zone in the end. Neither team was good on 3rd down efficiency. 2 for 9 for Minnesota for 22%, but they did go for it on 4th down 3 times and made it. Now, Dallas was even worse. 2 for 12 on 3rd downs, 16%, but went for it on 4th down 4 times, made it 3 times. And Dallas held the ball for 32.5 minutes to 27.5 for Minnesota, so 5 more minutes, but still ended up on the wrong end of this game. So like I said, J.J. McCarthy for Minnesota, 15 completions on 24 attempts for 250 yards. That's more than 10 yards an attempt. So like I said, he was getting the ball down the field pretty decently. 2 touchdowns, 1 interceptions, was not sacked at all. Quarterback rating of 108. Really, where was he all season? Now I know he was hurt, but even when there was points where I think he was well enough to play and they did not want to put him in the game. But he had a decent game. So I don't know if this is foreshadows anything positive coming forward. Maybe the next 3 games they have left, he'll have good games like this and show that he could be their quarterback for next year. Now, Dak Prescott, 23 completions on 38 attempts, so quite a bit of passing going on. 294 yards, 7.7 yards per attempt. No touchdowns, though, surprisingly. No interceptions, sacked twice. He had a quarterback rating of 84.8, so not one of his better games, really. Now, rushing the ball, Minnesota just could not do it very well. Aaron Jones, 12 carries, 34 yards. That's less than 3 yards a carry. Jordan Mason, 10 carries for 29 yards, so also less than 3 yards a carry. Now, McCarthy had 4 carries for 15 yards, so that was 3.75 yards a carry, but obviously that's probably more scrambling than anything. So as a team, 28 carries for 77 yards, 2.75 yards per carry. But they did have 2 touchdowns. McCarthy ran one in himself, and C.J. Ham, first carry in his career, had a touchdown. Crazy. For just that your first touch is 1 yard for a touchdown. So good for him. Not sure why they had him in the game at the time, but and not Mason or Jones, but that's what happened. For the Dallas Cowboys, Javonte Williams had a good game. 15 carries, 91 yards, and a touchdown. That's over 6 yards a carry. Malik Davis had 8 carries for 21 yards. They ran the ball well. 29 carries, 138 yards. That's 4.76 yards a carry. So really good. 2 touchdowns. Malik Davis and Javonte Williams both had the touchdowns. Now, in the receiving department for Minnesota, T.J. Hawkinson, 4 catches for 66 yards. Nobody had more than 4 catches. Justin Jefferson, man, I don't know what's happened. I really don't know what's happened. 2 catches again in this game, 22 yards. That's it. No touchdowns. They tried to get the ball to him. They threw the ball to him 8 times, which was the most of any player on the field, or as far as Minnesota goes, but only 2 catches on 8 targets. Jordan Addison had 2 catches for 66 yards, though, but only on 2 targets. Really, it was Jalen Naylor and T.J. Hawkinson who had 5 targets apiece to lead the team, except for Justin Jefferson. So I really don't know what's happened with Justin Jefferson. It's just not been his year, and it's kind of shocking to see this happen, especially when McCarthy throws for 250 yards. You expect to see Justin Jefferson have more than 22 of those. All right, moving on to the Dallas Cowboys. CeeDee Lamb, big game. 6 catches, 111 yards. No touchdowns, though. No one had a touchdown. George Pickens, another game, just so-so. 3 catches, 33 yards on 6 targets. Ryan Flournoy has kind of been filling in where Pickens is starting to drop off. He had 4 catches for 40 yards in this game. That's a look at some of the players on this game. Now, looking at some of the top 10s, no top 10s for Minnesota. But Dak Prescott, on a season level now, he was in 15th going into the game. Most passing yards for the Dallas Cowboys in a single season. But with 294, he jumps all the way up to 9th place with 3,931 yards this season so far. So he's in 9th right now. He has a good chance to move up a couple more spots for sure. He need 1,000 yards to break Tony Romo's record. In 3 games, it's not an impossibility, but they'd have to be 300-plus yard games to do it. So we'll see how far he gets in this game. This list for the Dallas Cowboys in passing yards in a single season, Danny White's in 8th, which will be past this next game by Dak Prescott, so he'll drop to 9th. Otherwise, every name on this list is either Tony Romo or Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott's on it 2, 3, 4, 5 times now. Tony Romo's on it 4 times. Well, 4. He was on it 5, but he's going to drop off because one was the 10th spot. But he's on it 4 times, and the top one is the all-time total passing yard leader for the Dallas Cowboys with 4,903. Dak Prescott missed out on that title in 2019. He had 4,902, 1 yard short of Tony Romo. That's how close these two have been in their stats. Now, in this game also, CeeDee Lamb had 111 yards. This is on a career level now for the Dallas Cowboys. So CeeDee Lamb with 111 yards jumps up into 6th place all time in that category with 7,315 yards. He passes Bob Hayes, fastest man in the world, at one time. That was a title for him. He played in the 1965 to 1974. So CeeDee Lamb now in 6th place all time in receiving yards for the Dallas Cowboys. Now in total scoring, Brandon Aubrey was in 9th, but he had 14 more points in this game. He's now got 440 to pass Jason Witten to move into 8th place all time in that category. He's one of the better kickers in the NFL, and given the opportunity, he could easily set the NFL record in longest field goal, though right now it's held by Cam Little for the Jacksonville Jaguars with 68 yards. Just like to throw that in there since we were talking about a kicker. All right, let's take one more game here. Miami Dolphins visiting Pittsburgh Steelers, and they lose this game 28-15. Pittsburgh needed the win to stay in first. Miami's out of it. And this was a Monday night game. I think they should have fired the coach right after the game. Daniels, the coach for Miami. I just didn't get it. And you heard the announcers talking about it as well. So we'll mention it. But in this game, Aaron Rodgers looked pretty good. Now, this was in Pittsburgh, and I know it's a cold game, and Tua plays terribly there. This game was not bad, for a while. But, Pittsburgh kept pulling away. And, it was only 7-3 at halftime. But then Pittsburgh comes out with 14 points in the third quarter and puts the game away. Miami came back in 12 points in the fourth quarter, and this is what I'm talking about. Miami Dolphins are down at the time, I guess it was 28-12, with about 10 minutes to go. And the announcers are talking about it the entire time. They are still huddling. They do a play, whatever happens, run, pass, they go into a huddle. And then they use the entire clock. They go down and score a field goal. But by this time now, you've used up 5 minutes of the clock. They did the same thing in the next one with a touchdown. It wasn't until they get to 28-15 and they decide maybe we should speed up this game. Everybody's like, what are you doing? Why are you not hurrying your offense? You don't have all day in the world to catch up to the Steelers. And they just didn't seem like they were interested in winning the game. They were just interested in calling their plays and, whatever it took for Tua to stand in the huddle, look at the play and figure it out and tell everybody, here's what we're doing. And they acted like they had the 28 points versus the 15. It was terrible. And that's what I was saying. I don't know. I don't understand the coach for Miami and in this situation. And I was going to listen to the after game interviews and see if somebody had said anything, because somebody had to say something and ask this question of him. What were you thinking Why were you not hurrying? I don't know what the reason was. So anyway, Miami loses it. They're 6-8, and they deserve to lose it playing like that, honestly. Now in this game, Pittsburgh 336 yards of offense, Miami 285. It really wasn't a lot going on in this game, really. I mean, not a lot of offense. Pittsburgh did good. Aaron Rodgers looked pretty decent. Even Tua did, just more casually about it in the game. Tua, 28 completions on 28 attempts. That's really good. 253 yards, 9 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, did throw 1 interception, sacked 4 times. Quarterback rating of 113.2. Aaron Rodgers, even better, 23 completions on 27 attempts. That's amazing. Only 4 incompletions. 224 yards, over 8 yards an attempt, which for him is good because he does so many dink and dunk type passes. His longest pass was 28 yards, which was for a touchdown. 2 touchdowns for Aaron Rodgers, a quarterback rating of 125.9. So really good game for him. Devon Chain, 12 carries, 60 yards for 5 yards a carry. They really didn't run the ball much, 16 times for 63 yards. Obviously, Devon Chain had 60 of those yards. Now for Pittsburgh, Kenneth Gainwell, 13 carries, 80 yards. That's over 6 yards a carry. Jalen Warren, who wasn't feeling particularly well, but he did stay in the game, 12 catches, 12 attempts rushing, for 33 yards. So that's less than 3 yards a carry. In this game, Miami, Darren Waller another player coming out of retirement, 7 catches, 66 yards, 2 touchdowns. So he had a really decent game there. Devon Chain, 6 catches, 67 yards. So you throw in his 60 yards running and 67 receiving. That's 127 yards of offense out of him. He is definitely their best player on the team. All right, that's a look at some of the stats in that game. Now, the only stat other than that was Devon Chain this season in rushing yards. Now, with the 60 yards that he has, moved into 5th all-time in rushing yards in a single season for the Miami Dolphins with 1,186. So good for him. He could move as far as 2nd. He won't catch Ricky Williams, who in 2002 had 1,853 yards. So no way he'll catch him, but he could move as high as 2nd all time. So he's had a decent season, and not only running, but receiving as well. All right. That is a look at the games that we had. Now let's move on to the standings. And we won't go through this exhaustively because if you watch the video on YouTube at Just the Stats NFL, I'll put these charts up here. I'll put each standings, like this one's the AFC East. You'll see it. And I've highlighted in red if they've been eliminated. So there's not much of a point talking about those teams because they're not in the playoffs anymore. No chance to do that. Now, for AFC East, New England Patriots are 11-3 with that loss to the Bills. Buffalo Bills are 10-4. So New England still has hold of the AFC East, but they can't really afford to lose too much. I do think, though, even with another loss, they have the tiebreaker. Right now in the division, New England Patriots are 3-1. Buffalo Bills are 3-2. So New England Patriots have that edge over them as well. In the AFC North, again, Cincinnati Bengals, Cleveland Browns are eliminated. Pittsburgh Steelers now have a 1-game lead over the Baltimore Ravens, but they still play each other. Steelers are 8-6. Baltimore Ravens are 7-7. So that's a tight race. In the AFC South, this is super tight. Tennessee Titans are out of it, 2-12. But Jacksonville Jaguars are 10-4. Houston Texans 9-5. Indianapolis Colts 8-6. What's crazy is just, and this is when you look at these numbers, what this looked like 6 weeks ago. when Indianapolis Colts were dominating in this division. But since then, the Jaguars have won 5 games in a row, Texans have won 6 in a row, and the Colts have lost 4 in a row. And that has been the big flip here, where Jacksonville Jaguars now have a 1-game lead over Houston Texans. So they cannot afford to lose. Texans have an easy game this week while the Jaguars play the Denver Broncos. So we'll see what happens this Sunday, but it could be a tied at top depending on what the Jaguars do. All right. Now in the AFC West, as I was saying, Denver Broncos have clinched a playoff spot. So they're in the playoffs. Where it is to be determined. The Chargers are 10-4, so theoretically they could still win this division. And they do hold all the tiebreakers pretty much. In the division, the Chargers are 5-0. The Broncos are 3-1. Chargers have a chance to win every game in their division, which definitely puts them in the a shot at if Denver Broncos were to falter at all. And if the Denver Broncos lose this Sunday to the Jaguars, that just tightens the gap if the Chargers can win their game. Now the Chiefs and the Raiders are out of it. They're not. They're out of the playoff contention at all. All right, looking at NFC East, Dallas Cowboys had a good shot at staying within reach of the Eagles, but they lost. They are now 6-7-1. The Eagles are 9-5. Like I said, the chances for Dallas Cowboys are slim. Eagles, if they lost the rest of their games, they'd go to 9-8. If the Cowboys won their last games, they'd go 9-7-1. So theoretically, they could win this division, but that's putting on the Eagles a total collapse. So probably even next week, Dallas Cowboys, even if they win, they're out of it. We'll look at that in a minute. The Commanders and the Giants in this division are eliminated. NFC North. This is a tight one. Minnesota's out of it, even though they're 6-8. It has to do a lot with who they play in these other games. But Chicago Bears now are in first. Green Bay was in first last week. This has been the most flip-floppy division there's been. Chicago Bears are 10-4. Green Bay Packers 9-4-1. And the Detroit Lions are 8-6. Detroit Lions' chances of making the playoffs are becoming slimmer and slimmer. They needed a win. They couldn't do it against the Rams. I know it's a tough team, and they just couldn't keep pace with the Rams, so they lost. They're 8-6. So we got a tough race here between the Packers and the Bears. Now the Packers in the division are 4-0, while the Chicago Bears are 1-3. So, actually, I think that might be backwards. I think the Bears are 4-0. So we'll see what happens here. But right now, the Bears have a half-game lead over the Packers. This division is going to come down to the wire. And for Detroit, they just need those two teams to lose, and they need to win out the rest of their games to have a chance. Now in the NFC South, Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Carolina Panthers, both 7-7. This is going to be crazy. They play each other, though, twice. They have 3 games left each. They play each other twice. So that obviously is going to determine who comes out the winner here. Atlanta Falcons and the New Orleans Saints both have been eliminated. Boy, Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Carolina Panthers, it's like, I talked about this before. It's like we're trying to hand you, the other team, the division, and you won't take it. You just lose too. Crazy. That's only one team's going to come out of that division. That's the division winner. Now in the NFC West, you got a whole different situation. Arizona Cardinals are eliminated, but you have the Los Angeles Rams. They are in the playoffs. Just a matter of where, as a wild card team or as a division winner. Right now, they're tied with Seattle Seahawks at 11-3, but they do hold the tiebreakers. San Francisco 49ers are just right there behind them at 10-4. This is a tough division. The Rams have won 2 in a row, and the Seahawks and 49ers have won 4 in a row. So they're making it tough in this division. You just got to keep winning. It's kind of like the AFC South, where you have to keep winning if you want to win the division. All right, that's a look at the standings. Now, in the AFC playoff picture, obviously the Broncos, all they need to clinch the West is to win and for the Chargers to lose. They could also even clinch the entire number 1 seed this week if they can beat the Jaguars, but they need the Chargers, the Ravens, and the Bills to all lose their games for that to happen. But the Broncos are definitely in the driver's seat here as far as number 1 seed, and they just need to win a game and the Chargers lose, and they win the West. Now the Patriots can clinch a playoff, the same thing. Everybody's hinging on Houston losing, which is not going to happen because they're playing the Raiders. But if Houston loses, that just clinches a playoff berth for several teams. The Jaguars, the Patriots, they would clinch a playoff berth if Houston would lose that game. But that's not going to happen, most likely. Patriots also clinch a playoff berth if Indianapolis Colts lose to San Francisco. So either way, and it's the same for Jaguars. They're in the playoffs. The Jaguars are if Houston loses or if Indianapolis loses. So they just need one of those two teams to lose. And, of course, they've got to win. If the Jaguars or the Patriots don't win, obviously they're going to have to go another week to see what happens. Now, for wild card teams, the Chargers are the 5th wild card in 5th spot right now, first wild card team. And like I said, they clinch a playoff berth if Houston loses or if Indianapolis loses to San Francisco, that's more of a possibility. The Bills are 10-4. They also clinch a playoff berth, same scenario. Both teams just need to win, but they need a loss by another team. Now, the Texans, obviously for them, they're the team everybody wants to lose. They're the 7th seed right now. They just need to keep winning because they're a game behind the Jaguars, so they can't really afford to lose a game at all. Now, the Colts are 8-5. They do need, or 8-6, I should say, they do need Texans to lose to have a chance, really. It's going to be hard for them. The Chargers and the Bills are the wild card teams right now, as the Jaguars are also 10-4, but they basically are asking those 3 teams all to lose their games, the rest of their games. That's not going to happen. Not all of them. The Ravens are 6-7. Actually, they're 7-7. They just need to win out. They have to beat Pittsburgh. That's only option they really have. Now, in the NFC, the Rams, like I said, have clinched the playoff spot. The Chicago Bears, they just need a win. And Detroit to lose. They definitely would clinch a playoff spot that way. The Eagles, the same thing. They just need to win and Dallas to lose. And then Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they've got to win out their division. That's all the option they have. As far as the wildcard teams currently, Seattle, all they need a win, and then they just need Dallas to lose, and they're in the playoffs. The same with San Francisco and the Green Bay Packers. Everybody wants Detroit or Dallas to lose, and that kind of guarantees the top 7 teams. That's what it's kind of, even though there's 3 games to go, there's really only one team in each conference that has a chance to upset this whole apple cart. So right now, what we're looking at more or less is who's going to win the division versus who's in the playoffs. The playoff teams are almost set. Detroit Lions are the only team here in the NFC who could change this scenario, and they really just need to win out and have some other teams lose, though. They need help in the NFC. All right, that's a look at the games that we had left, as well as the playoffs and the standings. Appreciate you listening. You can like and subscribe to this podcast at Just the Stats NFL on YouTube. There you can watch it, see these charts, see the NFL playoff scenarios that I posted, the standings and the games and the stats from those games that I talked about today. Tomorrow we'll look at the power rankings, my top 10s, and we'll look at some season stats. Who's the season leaders in the NFL this year? So we'll take a look at those things. So please like and subscribe. Like I said, you can watch it on YouTube at Just the Stats NFL. You can listen to it there. You can listen to this podcast on Apple, Spotify, wherever you happen to listen to your favorite podcasts. Hopefully this is one of them. Please comment if you'd like. I'm always willing to hear what you have to say, and I'll answer you back. So for NFL Top 10s for Wednesday, that is a wrap. I'll talk to you tomorrow.